Well, hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Johnny and you're watching Hillbilly Modeling. So this is going to be the last part. This is part 8 of our Standard B Liberty Series 2 World War I US Army Truck by ICM in 1/35th ICM over there, 1/35th scale. So, yeah, we are going to finish up this model finally in this video. We're going to start out with panel liner. We haven't done that yet. So, we're going to pick up right there, and we're just going to go straight on to the end, and you're going to enjoy it. So, let's go ahead and jump down to the bench and finish this one up.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the panel liner, which I mentioned before. Now, this is probably my least favorite thing to do, so just kind of get it in there. So, yeah, I do thin out my panel liner a little bit here. It tends to get thick after a while, and we are going to use a long, sharp-pointed brush here. The long bristles will hold more product, and we can get a lot more panel lining done with it. And it's just as you would expect. We're going to go ahead and every single nut, bolt, rivet, the lines between our boards here on the side of the bed. We want to make sure that we get our panel liner in there. It really helps to define these items, and yeah, and like I say, it's not pleasant to do. Now, if you missed the last video, we do have a coat of well, actually, it's like 2 coats of the gloss clear, yeah, which really helps the flow of our panel liner around all of our little grooves and and attachments and stuff that's all around the vehicle. So we're going to do the cab as well, of course, and every single nut, bolt, rivet. Yeah, you guys get that, right? But, yeah, let's not forget the frame. We got to do the entire frame and also the wheels. And yeah, so everything gets panel liner. Now, our Tamiya panel liner is an enamel product, so when it comes time to do some cleanup, and I assure you there's always going to be some cleanup, you just need a clean brush here and a little bit of the enamel thinner there, and just clean up anything that, well, you don't want. Any of those little ugly spots where maybe you've had too much coffee and you can't really get that brush to zero in on those panel lines. And we can just kind of brush that away and blend it in a little bit, whatever you'd like to do. If you are going to blend it in, just kind of go with the way the rain would run down the sides of the vehicle. Now, when it comes to these rivets, I am going to use a cotton bud for that and a little bit of enamel thinner on it, and we're just going to kind of roll it over top of it there. Now, you don't want to oversaturate it, because if you do, you'll pull all your panel liner out, and you'll have to go back and put some more in, but we don't want to do that. But it's an easy fix. And you can see it really cleans it up nicely. We just press it down over top of those rivets or bolts, or these are probably carriage bolts, but yeah. And that'll get rid of all that excess there. And as you can see, there we are. And it looks pretty good. Yeah. Now, you do want to kind of step away from it and come back later and look at it, make sure that you got everything before we seal it in. And we're going to be sealing it in with this Vallejo matte acrylic varnish here. And, of course, I do mix this up with a little bit of Vallejo airbrush thinner for acrylics. That way it's easier to spray. So going back to our instructions here, you can see we have these little bitty windows here in, what's this, step 78. Yeah, step 78. And these just go right into the sides here of our canvas. I imagine it's probably some sort of an acrylic plastic or something like that. I don't know for sure. But the little clear part that we're putting in has a bevel on it, so you want to make sure that you get the bevel going the right way. And then I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of To Me Extra Thin to set that in place. And then we have the one on the opposite side to do. And another clear part that we need to do is going to be the lens for our spotlight. And as you can see, it's got a bevel as well, so we want to make sure that orientation's correct. That way it will seat properly into the part. So we'll just place this into our spotlight very carefully here. And I want to try to get those little raised areas there, kind of a grill looking network of lines on it there, oriented so that it doesn't look offset. And then again, just a little bit of that extra thin, and it'll just wick right around, and we get it cemented into place there. There we go. That looks good. So next up, we need to attach our canopy there over the cab, and I'm going to use this medium CA glue for that. And there are some little tabs here. I know it's kind of hard to see. Sorry, a bad camera angle there. Right on the bottom of those tabs, that's where it's going to sit down onto the top ledge of the cab. So we're going to put some CA glue there, and I'm going to put it, kind of string it in between those two tabs too, because all of that's going to make contact. So we do have those little curved brackets that's on the cab there next to the seat, and there's a little hole that it needs to go in, and it's really hard for you guys to see that. I understand that. But since I'm using CA glue, I need to really make sure that I'm in there. Just pop it on, and we're going to press it together and make sure that everything seats properly and that it's fully down, sitting on those tabs. We don't want it kind of lopsided. Lopsided would be bad. So we're going to hold it and make sure everything tacks up for us really good there. So if we go back to our box, you see these straps? That kind of holds our canvas in its up position there, but it's not included in the kit. There are no straps, no photo etch or anything in this kit, and there's also some buckles there. So we're going to try to replicate that as best we can. So what I'm going to use is this cardstock. I think it's supposed to be red cardstock, but it's more like hot pink. But that's all right. Doesn't matter the color. We're going to paint it anyway. And what I have done is I have sliced us off a 1 millimeter wide strip. So I want the strip to, and the reason why I'm using cardstock is because it's going to be stiffer and easier to deal with. So we don't want our strap wider than that loop on the firewall there, because it's supposed to go through that. So we do need to trim off the top edge of it there, because these set at a slight angle, and I want to make sure that we've got as much cardstock as possible there to secure it to the underside of our canvas there, where the ribs or the bows are for our cab canvas. So we're going to have to trim that up, and we'll just use a pair of scissors for that and get that angle right. Now I am leaving these a little long, and that's okay, because I want to make sure that we've got our angle correct, and we just need to glue it up underneath the canvas there. And that CA glue that we're using, it will set up fairly quickly. I just want to make sure everything's aligned correctly, and we're going to give that time to dry. We don't want that breaking loose on us later. So the next thing we need to do is trim these to length. So I do need to trim them just a little bit long. Not very much, just a little bit, because we're going to curl the end of it down and around the strap loops that are molded into the cab there. And so we're going to put a little CA glue there on it, and kind of push it down around those. And once the cardstock gets wet with the CA glue, it will just fold right around, which is what I'm showing you here. You can see how it's folded around on the bottom edge there. That's nice. Okay, so that's good. I like how that has come out. All right, so we do have some real thin copper wire here, which I'm going to use to make those buckles with. I kind of folded it around my steel rule there because it needs to be 1 millimeter wide, or I should say millimeter wide on the inside, because it's going to slip around our strap. So I'm just kind of looking at how that's going to work. I think we're going to need a cross piece on it. Probably would help if we sand this wire just a little bit to brighten it up. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, we'll come back to those. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and use some red here and paint our straps up. So we just got to be kind of careful here. We don't want red all over our canvas and all over the cowling there on our firewalls. So yeah, probably going to need 2 or 3 coats, because this being cardstock, paper product, of course, it's going to really soak up that craft paint. So this is 2 coats that we have on it, and it's just a little bit splotchy, but now that I think about it, I don't want it really bright red anyway. Being a little splotchy means it's been used, which is a good thing. So we're going to kind of leave it like that. That's kind of help us in the long run. So yeah, I like the looks of that. That looks good. So just a note to you guys, when you paint these, the paper is going to swell because of the water-based acrylic, and then when it dries, it should tighten right back up. So don't get excited about that if it happens to you. So I did go ahead and make these up. They're extremely small, as you can see here, and I did use a little bit of CA glue there and put us a little cross piece on it. As you can see right there, kind of simulate a buckle of a sort. Doesn't look like what's in the picture on the front of the box, but you can see I do have it bent around. This is how it's going to work. We're going to slide it onto the strap, and then we'll bend this other leg down at an angle to meet the back side of it there. So what we're going to do is get it to CA glued into place, and they're going to go right there. And I did sand the wire first before I bent it into the final shape here for these buckles. And so that's going to be a really hard thing to show on camera. So I'm just going to put CA glue on the back side of that strap and then kind of hang these off of it, and then we can bend them back into place there on the little open leg side. And that's what we have right here. And that looks pretty decent. Yeah, I think that's going to get the message across that there's some buckles there, and for tightening and holding our straps nice and tight for our canvas. So that should be all right. So next up, we need to make our vehicle just a little bit dirty. Now this is AK Interactive's Earth Effects here. And this is the lightest color here that comes in a 3-jar pack there. And we're going to thin that out, though, because it is a wash and it is enamel-based, and we're going to use Tester's enamel thinner for that. And I'm going to thin it out about 70 to 80% thinner, which means we need to make sure that this stays mixed up, especially while we're using it, because the enamel pigments will settle out into the bottom of our little paint thing here. What is it called? I don't know. But as you can see here, I'm getting it all mixed up here, and I made sure that I mixed up plenty because we've got a lot to do. We need to do the frame here. I'm starting with the bottom, the underside, I should say, of our fenders, and then we can just put it across the top too. Since we have so much thinner in this product, when it starts to dry, the pigments are going to kind of seek out anything that's protruding. So that's kind of the idea, because that's where your dust and stuff is going to start to collect first. And you may have to put more than one coat on it. I go around this several times. I can't tell you how many times, but put a single coat on each and every area that you want to show with dirty or dusty look. Since I have thinned this product out so much, it's going to give us more of a dust look than a mud look. So it's kind of like a real light weathering, which is kind of what I'm looking to do here on this vehicle. I don't want to cover up all that nice stuff that we have going on. So the bottom of the radiator here, and if you've been around equipment before, you know that dirt and dust and stuff, it really packs into the bottom of the radiator. So that's kind of what I'm simulating here, just the bottom edges. And we'll get that product around on our radiator too. And we don't want to forget about our wheels. So going to give it a light dust coat there. And as you would expect, the tires are going to be dirty as well. And so we need to get that onto our rubber part of our tire. But don't worry about it. We're going to come back and kind of work with this again later on after everything dries. So I did the engine at the same time, because engines tend to be, kind of dirty and dusty. The fan will pull air through there and get a lot of dust and dirt and stuff there. There's our radiator with just the bottom section of it, nice and dusty for us. And here on the toolboxes and the underside as well, where the wheels would throw some dust and mud up, we've done that. And then I've also done the bottom edge here of the cab and right around the front of the cab there, and the steps. And then, of course, we did the mat that's in the cab floor, and then the bottom edge of our hood as well. So you kind of want to be a little dusty down around that edge there. Now, when it comes to our tires, I have a paper towel here with a little bit of enamel thinner on it. And we're just going to kind of clean off a little bit of the weathering product there. Kind of try to emphasize the all the work that we did there on the tires a little bit, as you can see. And of course, the mud and stuff is going to stick to the sides. That's going to kind of stay on there. So we're going to go back to the frame here with a little bit of enamel thinner, and going to put in some kind of streaks here. I guess most people would call them rain streaks, but as water kind of gets splashed around and runs down, it's going to be a little bit streaky. And we are going for a light, dusty kind of look here, so adding a little bit more detail there with some streaks is really going to help out in the appearance overall, I think. And you can see here I've kind of streaked it. So that looks pretty good. I kind of like that for a really light weathered frame. Next up, we're going to use some streaking grime from AK Interactive here. And I really like this stuff because when it dries flat, which gives you the idea that it's kind of crusty. We're going to use this on our engine first. You can imagine that maybe that front main seal is probably leaking a little bit there and running down the oil pan a little bit. And put us a little pool there. Just get creative. Do as much or as little as you like, or none at all. It's up to you. Now, this engine has an updraft carburetor that has a float bowl on it, and that fuel bowl always leaks. And of course, it's going to drip onto the engine and dirt and grime is going to collect there. And as you can imagine, it would kind of run around the engine block seam there to the oil pan. So we'll go ahead and put us a little bit of grime there. And then in the corner, you can imagine it would probably run down right there. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. A little bit more interest there. And I imagine, since our front main is leaking a little bit, the rear main probably leaks a little bit too. These engines had what was called a wick seal, and yeah, they kind of kept most of the oil in the engine. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Going with that same theme, I imagine the drain plug here maybe leaking a little bit there on our differential. So we'll go ahead and put us a little bit of leak there. Not too terrible, you know, just to show that it's being used. And we'll do the same thing with our transmission here and the differential input there at the drive shaft. You know, just a little bit of grimy, dirty, greasy kind of stuff there. So, yeah. Now, every now and then, a hub will leak. So, I picked out one of our rear hubs here. And we'll use that streaking grime there just to make it a little bit more grimy, but a little bit more realistic for a vehicle that's being used during World War I. I think, I hope. So now it's time for our final assembly. So we're going to start off here with Tamiya thick cement here. And we're going to start with our wheels. So the front wheels kind of go onto these cones that are on our front axle. So we're going to go ahead and put some of that inside of the hubs there. And we'll set them on the cones. They are a tapered fit, so we need to press them in and make sure that they're fully seated. And check our alignment there. You want to make sure that we don't have a wobbly loose wheel. So when it comes to the rear, same thing. And it does have a flat surface for it to flush up against. So we're just going to put that thick cement inside and slip on our duals back here and get them all lined up. And we're going to make sure that they're all pressed on, no gaps, and they line up very nicely. We don't have any issues here. And you do want to check and make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to. You know, we don't want any wobbly wheels. Because once this cement sets up, it would be very difficult to get this back off. So now you can use CA glue for this operation too. So we are going to slide our radiator into place, and it has a slot to go into. And I'm just going to lean it forward a little bit there once we get it in, because now we need to cement our engine in. And I'm using the same thick cement for that. We have an attachment point on the front cross member and then inside the frame rails on both the left and right. So we'll make sure we get us some cement down on the ledge there where the engine is going to sit. And with that done, we can go ahead and tilt our engine into place. And kind of slide it down in between the frame rails there. It is a tight fit. And once we get our fan lined up with our shroud, just like so, we can go ahead and press down on the engine a little bit there. And then we do need to seat that drive shaft into our transmission. So a little push forward and it'll pop right in. And we want to make sure that everything's down, nice and secure. Now with that done, we need to line up our radiator. So I'm just going to set the cab down onto the frame into its slots here. Now, we're not going to cement this yet. And make sure it's fully down. And then we can slide our hood into place. And with that, we can close the gap at the top of the radiator. Make sure it's all set right where it's supposed to. Now I'm going to take To Me Extra Thin, being very careful. And we just want to cement the radiator. Don't want to cement the hood into place. We want that removable. And I am going to let this set for 10 or 15 minutes before I try to remove our hood and cab. So with that, the radiator is fixed into place. We can take our hood off. You can see it's nice and solid to a light touch. So with those parts removed, we can go ahead and work on our exhaust. Now I did clean up those holes a little bit for the paint to include the ends of our exhaust manifold and intake manifold so that our To Me Extra Thin will have something to grip onto. And we'll just put our To Me Extra Thin right there into each one of those ports. And once we get that done, we can slide our exhaust and intake manifold assembly over and place them right into the holes there. And it is a really nice fit. ICM did a wonderful job here on their engineering. This kit is really going together very nicely. So once we get that set into place, we do have our exhaust hanger, which hangs off the bottom of the frame there. And I'm just going to put a little bit of To Me Extra Thin there and press it down to make sure it's in full contact. And our exhaust is in. So next up, we have our coolant tube that goes to the top of the radiator. And it also goes into each one of the heads on top of our engine. So a little cement there. And we'll just slide that into place. And we want to make sure that the down tubes coming off of there are setting into the head, or each one of our heads, I should say. Yeah, so everything's lined up. It looks good. Now we do have a bottom radiator hose to go on, and we'll cement that into place. Now it doesn't really attach to the engine, so it just kind of goes to the frame, and then that's pretty much it. So we couldn't put this onto the radiator before because we had to have that radiator leaning forward so we could get the engine in. Now with that done, we can go ahead and attach our cab. Kind of exciting here. I really like it when everything is starting to come together. So we're going to use the same thick cement that we'd been using before. And then we're just going to slide our cab into the notches there. Now I did use my X-Acto knife and clean up those notches a little bit to get the paint off of them, so that we've got a good surface to glue to. Now we're going to switch to some CA glue here. And this is where we're going to attach our spreader bar that goes from the cab to the radiator. Now in a previous video, we made our own bar here because the kit doesn't come with one. And we used reference photos for that. And put our little brackets on to the radiator and the cab. So we're going to use CA glue there to attach that rod. And just press it down into place. And that looks good. Yeah. So that's what it's supposed to look like. More or less. in a hillbilly kind of way. So next up, we need to put in this second shifter here. And there's a little bitty, I know you can't see it because of the camera angle and everything, but we're going to use CA glue for that. There's a little bitty circular receptor for our shifter that goes onto the side of our shift tower there. So it's down inside the cab. Yeah, it would have been easier to do without the canvas on, but that would have been a problem for us making our straps and all that. So we just kind of CA glue that into place. And we do have a crank, of course. This was not electric start. You had to use your muscle to get this thing started. So our crank attaches to the front of the engine at the engine crank, and then there's a bracket that goes into a slot there up underneath the frame, as you can see right there. That's how that all goes together. Looks nice. So now we're going to move on to some thread. Now this is for our canvas, and if you've ever tried to thread, you know, this is our rope that holds our canvas down to our truck bed. And if you ever try to stick a piece of thread through a small hole, that's always a problem. So I'm using CA glue here to kind of stiffen it all up for us. And once it dries, we can come in with our scissors and just snip it off at an angle. So it's got kind of a sharp point there. And that's going to make it so much easier for us when it comes to our next step, which is threading this through those little bitty holes that we drilled in our canvas. So this is the rope that holds down our canvas to the bows and the truck bed. So as you can see, that CA glue really helps. It kind of makes it into a threading needle there for us so that we can push that all through. Just make sure that CA glue is dry. Now we are going to use some masking tape here to tape us some loops up onto the side of the canvas. And that's really kind of important because we don't want this rope to get stuck into the glue and stuff later on. As you can see here, I've got it all taped up all the way around, and nothing slack that can interfere with the fit of our canvas going on to our actual truck bed. Now, we don't want to get our rope up underneath there. And we are going to secure the front section of the rope there by using some CA glue on the back side of those holes. That way that piece of our canvas rope stays nice and tight for us. We don't need it to slacken up on us because we're going to be pulling on this later on. So we're going to shift back to our thick Tamiya cement here. And I'm going to use a cocktail stick or a toothpick or whatever you care to call it. And as you can see, there is a rib that lies right along where the top of the bed of the truck is going to sit. And we're just going to spread some cement on both sides of this canvas top here. And with that done, we can go ahead and set our canvas into place. Now, like so, and now you can see the reason why we taped all of our rope up. We didn't want to get that down into the glue or get it caught, because we need this to be free so we can pull it nice and tight on all of our little hooks there around the bed of the truck. So one of the problems that we're kind of having here is that these bows that extend below the canvas, they don't really make contact or very good contact with the truck sideboards here on the bed. So a little bit of CA glue up underneath them, and you can see I'm using a cocktail stick there to hold it up out of the way so that I can get up underneath it there and put a little bit of CA glue on it. And we can press those down. And we're going to go ahead and cement all of these into place there so we don't have any gaps. Now with that done, we can start tying down our canvas. So we're going to have to remove that masking tape there. And using our cocktail stick again and some medium CA glue, we're going to go right up under those little hooks there, which if you've seen it in one of the previous videos when we were preparing for this ordeal that we're doing now, we did file those hooks out so that they were actual hooks, which makes it so much easier now You can just loop your CA glue underneath that hook, and then we can just pull our canvas rope nice and tight there, just like that. And we're going to use that same method here going down the entire side, actually down both sides, tying our canvas down to each one of the hooks. Again, just a little bit of CA glue, kind of roll it up underneath the hook there, and then we'll take our tweezers and we'll pull our rope down underneath it and get it hooked right onto the hook. So it helps when a hook's a hook, doesn't it? So there we go. So yeah, that's looking really good. Now this one is a little bit harder to get in, so I just want to make sure that it is all the way down, because the rope, as you can see, kind of goes around our bows there a little bit, so you got to get it pushed into place. And then we just going to lace it all up. And as you can see, that's the effect that we're getting, and that looks pretty good. I'm really pleased with that. I'm pleased with how that's come out. So, to our next little problem here is tying our finishing off of our rope around the canvas. So we do need a loop in it here. And if you've been around 2.5-ton trucks that has canvas tied down to them, or any canvassed vehicle that doesn't have snaps, if it uses rope, it's always tied at the back, which is where the tailgate is, because that's where you're going to untie it to lower your tailgate, load your cargo, put your tailgate up, and you're going to retie your canvas. So we do need a loop right here, and so we're going to tie us a little knot there to get that started, and a little bit of CA glue there. And as you can see, I am using a tool here to make sure that we're kind of holding our loop in place there. And then I'm going to tie a second knot right next to that one. In the Army, we weren't in the Navy. We didn't learn how to tie a lot of knots, so we just usually it's just a hitch. So we're going to get that second one in there and get it secured with our CA glue. So we need to run the rope from the opposite side through our loop there and pull it tight. Not too tight. We don't want to undo anything. We just want it to look like it's tied up, like it's supposed to be. And oftentimes, these ropes were pulled around the back side of one of the hooks there, and then we'll just pass the rope underneath it there, and we'll get that all tied off, and we'll also secure it with some CA glue. So with that done, we can go ahead and trim off the tails here. I'm going to leave a short tail on the loop side that we tied before. And then on the opposite side, we're going to leave us a longer tail there, because oftentimes there was quite a bit of rope left over. And mine's probably shorter than what it was in reality, but I don't want to have to deal with a lot of extra rope hanging down there. So that's kind of what we got going on, and that looks decent. So, yeah, I like the looks of that. So next up, we can go ahead and cement our bed to the truck frame. So once again, I'm going back to the thick cement, and I have cleaned the mating surfaces of all the paint there so that it will adhere to our truck frame. And we don't want our truck bed falling off later. So now all we got to do is line up those lugs to the slots in the frame and make sure that the bed gets seated completely. Now you can use CA glue for this too. I do like using the thick Tamiya cement for this because it does allow us some room for movement until it sets up. in case we don't get things lined up exactly. So now with that done, I'm going to use this for the first time. This is AK's metal polishing pigment there. This gives us the look of metal. I'm going to apply it with this silicone brush here. And it really sticks to the silicone nicely. And the other good thing is that it's easily washed off with a little bit of soap and water, so you can clean your silicone brush up. So we're going to apply this to our steps and also to the edge of the cab there, where the driver and the other crew members are going to be getting in and out of the cab. And we got our grab handles there. We'll put us a little bit of metal polishing powder there. And we'll do the opposite side as well. As you can imagine, you know, people are getting in and out of both sides of the cab, so we're going to need that. And with that done, you can see, yeah, it looks pretty good. And don't forget the crank on the front of the truck as well. So let's take a look at what we managed to accomplish here. And as you can see, I'm really glad that we painted up all of our radiator hoses with those little radiator clamps or radiator hose clamps. Really added something to the vehicle. And the addition of that spreader bar for our radiator from the cab, along with the straps, which are not included in the kit there to hold our canvas down over the cab. And then, of course, taking the time to drill the holes and fix the hooks there for our rope. And adding the rope really adds an extra dimension there to the overall presentation. I guess that's maybe the word I'm looking for. I think it looks really, really good. Now, I did go with some light weathering on this vehicle. I really hate just covering up all of our hard work with a lot of mud and gunk and stuff. But now this vehicle would look really good with some heavy weathering. If you wanted to put it into a diorama or something like that with some heavy mud, as you can see, there's plenty of areas there to accept all that, and that would look good as well. So overall, I think it's come out pretty good. Of course, you guys are going to be the judge of that. And as you can see here, we can see our little oil stains and stuff where we've got our small leaks and what have you going on around the vehicle. Now, I do know that, as well as you guys do, that the canvas is supposed to be khaki. However, I kind of like the look of the vehicle on the box art with the green canvas, so I decided to go green. Yeah, we went green. So, yeah. Now, as far as the kit goes, I really enjoyed this kit. It fits together very well. The only problems that we had, and I'll just enumerate those very quickly, was the radiator guard, the support brackets. One of them was bent out of shape, and the other one was broken off, so we did have to fix that. And then we did have that unsightly seam around the radiator, which we really had to clean up the top tank of the radiator because it's supposed to be kind of flat and smooth. And then when it came to gluing up the frame, as you know, it's really hard sometimes to get some warpage and what have you out of the frame, which we had a little bit of that, but we managed to get that taken care of without any issues. And lucky for us, all 4 points of contact there with the ground, it all meets, so I guess we did all right with the frame. It is a low part count build, actually, for what you get with all the detail that this kit actually has, and it goes together very well. So a beginner might be a little much for a beginner, especially if you want to add all the extra detail. But do take the time and be patient with it, and add all the little details that are missing out of the kit, especially those straps that holds our front canvas down. You really want that cab canvas straps to be there, because I think it really looks good with those on there. So that's going to do it for this build. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, give the video a like. I'd appreciate that. Special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys that I keep making these videos, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. And if you are new to the channel, I hope that maybe I earned your subscription. So with that, that's the end of this one, and we're going to go on to a new build. So I'll be looking forward to that coming up next Friday. So until then, you guys stay safe.